Hello, everyone. We warmly welcome you to our Sunday morning roundtable discussion. Today is Sunday, February 10th, 2019. We're recording from Plainfield, New Jersey, Christian Science Church Independent, and that is the United States of America. We're so glad you all could join us. And we will start today with our morning prayer.
Page 165 of Miscellany. Goodness never fails to receive its reward, for goodness makes life a blessing. As an active portion of one stupendous whole, goodness identifies man with universal good. Thus may each member of this church rise above the oft-repeated inquiry, "What am I?" to the scientific response, "I am able to impart truth, health, and happiness, and this is my rock of salvation and my reason for existing." Mary Baker Eddy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then miscellaneous writings. Mary Baker Eddy. We today in this classroom are enough to convert the world if we are of one mind, for then the whole world will feel the influence of this mind. That the earth was without form, and mind spake, and form appeared. There are a couple of things I wanted to begin with this morning. First, I'll read this Wednesday too, but we heard from the person who, our translator in Pakistan. Yeah. So, and he wrote something very lovely. Jeremy, can you read it?
Thank you for your email and for transferring the funds to me. May God be with you always and help us all to work for the glory of his kingdom among us. Amen. And then he had initially written, this is the other. I have listened to the Bible study into Hindi in your website. This is amazing and very nice work you have done. Keep it up and reach plenty of Christians in India and other areas of the world. God bless you guys.
So that was exciting because it's our first response. And you know the importance of doing this work was really what our watch was last night about our translation going out. Correct translation as near as possible to Mrs. Eddy's English version, science, and the Bible, going out, bless and heal a world. And you should always take it up in your daily work. So, thank you all, and that was some good fruitage. Okay, and then also Florence was going to talk about something she felt. Florence?
Oh, yes. It comes quite often that people who are, of course, hungering for the truth are finding us on YouTube and all these places. And the testimony meetings are reported often as how helpful they are. And I feel like this is what I used to do. Sometimes I would hesitate to repeat certain testimonies because I feel like, but they've heard it over and over again. I think we should just have the view of, like this beginning was saying, we are talking to the world. We don't know who is coming. Some people have never read the Bible. I recently got another call from Europe that, they grew up, they haven't never read the Bible before. So we don't know who we're talking to. So let's just, if you feel led to say something that you said over sometimes, it's going out. It's reaching people who need to hear it. We may have heard it over and over, but if it's inspired to say so, do have the courage to say so, because I didn't used to have the courage to repeat. I would always stop myself from saying something, even though I felt led to do so. And you don't know who is going to bless that day.
Thank you. You know, Mrs. Eddy said, the work is not humdrum, dear ones. It is repeating and defeating, repeating and defeating. And I know in my own case, many things were repeated often by Miss Evans or perhaps others. And sometimes it even took me a while. I might say to myself, oh, yeah, I've heard that. But had I really heard it? Had I really made it mine? Had I worked with the thought? Often not. So repeating is a good thing. Us mortals seem to need it. And that doesn't mean that there shouldn't be fresh and new things, because there should be. That's proof of progress. And even if you have given a testimony about something, you can say it in a different way. I was thinking, with any healing or anything I've learned, there are many aspects to how I've learned, what I've learned. Not just the same thing. It's different, fresh and new. Everything is always fresh and new. I'm surprised in many ways how we can have these Bible studies. We can repeat a topic we have done before, and yet there's so many fresh and new things that are discussed. Or perhaps things I just hadn't remembered, hadn't retained, so it was good to go over it again. So.
And the test for every Wednesday testimony meeting should be, God, what do you want? What do your children need? God will give you an idea as you go through the healings and the blessings you've had that Christian Science has meant to you. God will provide you with one of them that is necessary. As Florence said, we're getting new people all the time listening to our services, finding our website, YouTube channel. So when God, when you feel inspired to repeat a healing or repeat a blessing, you're feeling the inspiration for a reason.
Yeah, because God knows who's listening, and He knows who wants that particular message at that particular time. So thank you, Florence. All right, our subject today is spirit. Golden text, 1 Corinthians. Know ye not that ye are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you? It's a powerful statement to think about and work with. And Linda, you wrote to it on the forum.
Yes, I found a quote by Mrs. Eddy that really struck me, that was helping me understand the temple of God. And it was, do you want me to read it? Quite long paragraph.
Oh, go ahead. It's good. Good one.
All right. Quote. Would you rush forth single-handed to combat the foe? Nay. Would you not rather strengthen your citadel by every means in your power and remain within the walls for its defense? Likewise, should we do as metaphysicians and Christian scientists. The real house in which we live and move and have our being is Spirit, God, the eternal harmony of infinite souls. The enemy we confront would overthrow this sublime fortress, and it behooves us to defend our heritage. How can we do this Christianly scientific work? By entrenching ourselves in the knowledge that our true temple is no human fabrication, but the superstructure of truth, reared on the foundation of love and pinnacled in life. Such being its nature, how can our godly temple possibly be demolished or even disturbed? Can eternity end? Can life die? Can truth be uncertain? Can love be less than boundless? Referring to this temple, our Master said, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up." He also said, "The kingdom of God is within you. Know, then, that you possess sovereign power to think and act rightly, and that nothing can dispossess you of this heritage and trespass on love." End quote. And that's Mary Baker Eddy, Pulpit and Press, page 2 and 3.
Thank you. Wonderful. That is something you should all be familiar with. It's something we were given to work with here. And so remember, defending who and what you are as God's child. Very important that you do that. Or Era would try to trample over it, and then in belief he would seem to lose it. That's not necessary.
And just one other thought that has come to me. The Spirit of God dwelleth in you. That is all there is to you. It's not an add-on to what you otherwise are. It's not like you're something and also there's the Spirit of God dwelling in you. The only thing you are is the Spirit of God manifest. You have no existence outside of God. This is our safety, because this is the truth about each one of us. I just found this incredibly profound. I don't have any existence.
That's why we speak of the oneness, our oneness.
Yes. There's no separation. And since God is all, how could I have any existence outside of the Spirit of God?
Thank you. So you see how important it is to defend that, to know that to be the truth about you, and not to ever have anyone trample over it or tell you otherwise or make you feel otherwise.
I think it's so important to spend whatever time to know this, because it's the one knowing that will blast away all these beliefs that come, however guys they show up as. This was given to me some time ago, and I still remember it. The power of it.
From Pulpit and Press, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. So, as I say, as we go along, you should be building up your arsenal with these very important, profound statements, and work with them to make them yours, not just quotes, but yours. And wonderful Shardy has been writing where all the quotes come from and putting it on our website, so you can have it all there for you to refer to or to look up or whatever's needed, so you don't forget it. They say the human mind just slips here, there, and everywhere, doesn't really retain. But we know that not to be true. We've got the mind of Christ, and it's possible to retain it. And the best way is to be living it. When you live it, it's just in you. You become it. Now, there were a lot of quotes or forum submissions, or some, especially toward the latter part of the week. Today I want to talk mainly about this idea, because the lesson was very much about spiritual sense. We've talked about it before, but it's perhaps one of the most precious gifts we have as a child of God, the ability to hear his voice. So, in 1 Corinthians, which is citation 7 in the Bible, Jeff, would you read the first two paragraphs, verses? As it is written.
As it is written, eye hath not seen, nor ear heard, neither have entered into the heart of man the things which God hath prepared for them that love him. But God hath revealed them unto us by his Spirit. For the Spirit searcheth all things, yea, the deep things of God.
Thank you. So, what is that saying?
You're not going to perceive the things of God by what's literally in front of you, what you see or hear, literally. But it's through the Spirit. The Spirit does reveal it unto us. We do have that capacity to sense what the Spirit is claiming.
Thank you.
And what is said about neither have entered into the heart of man, it makes me think of what Gary just said about how it's already there. It doesn't need to come in, it's already there.
Thank you.
Our material senses will deceive us. You can't judge a book by its cover. Real simple. However, man's spiritual sense is never wrong. Quote Mary Baker Eddy.
I didn't know that before coming here, that it was always inside me. And it's a real awakening and blessing.
Thank you. This is something that Carthen sent to me this week. It's Luke 19:41. And it's this, about the Christ, Jesus. Now as he drew near, he saw the city and wept over it, saying, if you had known, even you, especially in this your day, the things that make for your peace, but now they are hidden from your eyes. For days will come upon you when your enemies will build an embankment around you, surround you, and close you on every side, and level you, and your children within you to the ground. And they will not leave in you one stone upon another, because you did not know the time of your visitation. Now, Jesus was brought to tears by what he saw, what he felt, and what he knew, and what others just could not see. So this is why the importance of your spiritual sense, because it will never steer you wrong. You will know what to do. You will discern properly the signs of the times. You will know what's going on in our nation and in our world. They said Mrs. Eddy knew all she needed to know, sometimes without even reading or anything. A lot of the instructions she gave were to her students privately in her home. It wasn't necessarily written. And even now, I'm sure there was much that was taught, just as we know there was much that Jesus taught to his disciples that have not been passed down. But when you have this spiritual sense within you working, you'll just know. You will know what you need to know. And sometimes it can be upsetting when you see others not getting it, when it seems so obvious. But then you just have to pray for that one mind to be in all and everyone as it was in Christ Jesus. And in the lesson, it speaks of this, and I love those pages from the chapter on spiritualism, where it says, citation 9, when sufficiently advanced in science to be in harmony with the truth of being, men become seers and prophets, involuntarily controlled not by demons, spirits, or demigods, but by the one Spirit. It is the prerogative of the ever-present divine mind and of thought which is in rapport with this mind to know the past, the present, and the future. And then it goes on to foresee and foretell events which concern the universal welfare, to be divinely inspired, yea, to reach the range of fetterless mind. You know, a practitioner, and others, I'm sure many of you, and you're all practitioners, feel this too. You can sense what's going to happen to a person if they don't wake up or if they don't start getting it. And it's very hard not to speak out. And when the person isn't ready for that instruction, they will hate you for it. So sometimes it's best just to mentally know this truth rather than to speak. It begins to work in you as you put God first, this spiritual sense I'm talking to you about. And it gets louder and louder, where at first it might be very, very faint.
And young children, it's loud, naturally. And it only becomes faint in adults when they suppress it, when they have it drummed out of them, whether it's by their parents or by their schools or whatever. But it's naturally there. And why is it naturally there? Because it's the only real sense. It is the image and likeness of God. That he says intuition for spiritual sense it starts with intuition and hope and faith. But it shows you reality. It's the most precious thing we have.
And that's why, again, to go back to what pulpit and press, the idea of defending it. Because once you start getting it and you feel it working, you will want to defend it. You won't put yourself in situations where it'll be trampled over. You just won't. You can't. And people will think, oh, look, they're giving up so much. They're not doing all these things that maybe, once was thought so important. But it's you don't miss it at all. Because you have something so much better, so much more meaningful. In Parsons' Forum, he wrote that 70 years after King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon destroyed the temple at Jerusalem, I'm sure this is why Jesus was weeping. Babylon fell and was now a subject of the Persian Empire, ruled by the excellent Cyrus the Great, who decreed that the temple of God be rebuilt. This history prefigures what must be fulfilled in our day, this very moment, the liberation of Christianity, and Christian Science in particular, from Antichrist captivity. What does that mean?
Seems to me it would be the human mind. That was a very profound statement, actually.
In a basic sense, it means we got to do our work.
It sort of reminded me of like when the Bible was all Latin and they wouldn't let people read it, and they made it open and interpreted it. Liberate. I think that's the word I was looking for. Liberated it. from the grasp of that Antichrist so that the people could have it in its pure form.
Thank you. It is the human mind that holds it, the Antichrist. Thank you, Linda, that holds any spiritual idea, would try to hold it in captivity.
And the only way the human mind can operate is through fear and ignorance. And our missionary work is to love so much that fear cannot exist, and to educate with the truth so that there is no longer any ignorance. And we don't have to talk anybody into it. The truth is the truth. It does its own work. And that is how we help liberate those who need to be liberated, including ourselves.
Yeah, mainly ourselves. It's all within ourselves and how we're seeing everything. But I loved what Mrs. Eddy says. I don't have the exact quote, but she talks about how unwinding our snarls. And this is the work. It's what I find in the practice. It's what I find, with our website. People I came with all these snarls, these misconceptions about life and about God and myself. And once you start understanding the truth, just like a snarly pieces of hair that you can't comb through, the snarls unwind, and pretty soon you can comb through it. And it all makes sense, and it's like, wow, I'm free, I get it, yay! That's what it is.
It doesn't matter how long.
Nope. How long, how entrenched the snarl seems to be. God has the conditioner.
And I just want to say, there's a process here that we all have to go through. It's not like all of a sudden the light bulb goes on and you understand everything. That's not how it works. A light bulb will go on, and you will perceive a truth. And then you can test it. A lot of this we have to take on faith. We have to test it in our own lives. Well, test it. For heaven's sake, don't be afraid to test it. See how it works in your life. See how it makes things better in your life. And there will be opposition, and that's why it's a test. The human mind will oppose what you are testing here. But don't get discouraged. Wait patiently on God.
In the first edition, I turned to this week on page 86. It goes with what Gary was saying. Mrs. Eddy says, to suddenly drop our earthly character and become partakers of eternal life without the pangs of a new birth is morally impossible. Forget about it, okay? Because people get so angry, they just want to know this right away, and they want to have their healing right away, and round, why not? She says, we know all will be changed in the twinkling of an eye when the last trump shall sound. But the last call of wisdom is not the first call in the growth of Christian character. While man is selfish, unjust, hypocritical, and sensual, to conclude the last call of wisdom has been heard that awakens him to glorified being is preposterous. Science forbids such feats of imagination and looks us in the face with reason and revelation. Now that is clear. So, when you're confronted with a problem, you want all the externals to go, zip, and yet learn nothing. Well, occasionally that might happen. Maybe it does happen at times. But if the problem remains for a while, and you've got to really work and change and have a new birth go on, come out a different person, this is Christian Science healing. And you should be very grateful to get it in whatever way it comes. And if it comes in that way, then rejoice. Your name is written in heaven, instead of complaining or thinking Christian Science doesn't work. It's the purifying of the internals, what she was saying. You go around, you have a quick healing, and you can still be hating your mother. Maybe when a healing takes a while, you're ready to drop that hot potato and stop hating anybody.
That's a very happy and hopeful thought, too, because it means I'm not a loser if I'm still trying to get through things.
Well, thank you very much.
No.
Absolutely.
No, not at all.
All along the way, there's something being revealed. That it's, there, like you were saying, Mary, there's purifying going on. There's so many things that are revealed to you to work out, to get clean from it, to know that it's never been a part of you. And this is why the word impatience, anybody can look it up. It includes a lot. So it's not part of this process at all.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. And to me, there's also something to the fact that even though you may not be seeing results or a healing, you are still trying, no matter what, because you know that whatever's going on isn't right and there's something better, so you keep at it.
Well, and that's it. And as long as you're working in that way, Mrs. Eddy says you are making progress, even though you don't see results. And I know that to be true because I went for long periods of time thinking I saw no progress. Sometimes when you have this big clump of hair that's just not yielding, you think, oh, gosh, it'll never work. And you keep pouring that hair conditioner on it, the lubrication of love, the lubrication of spirit, of truth, of life. Keep putting that on, applying it, keep pushing a little here, shoving a little there. And eventually, it's all, you get it. And at that time, then, it's like you wondered what you were so worried about. Who was telling me that recently? You? Where after you've had a healing, you look back and say, well, that wasn't so bad after all.
Yeah, I thought that about how low I got before coming here. Seemed like the most awful thing, and now I think I would have gone through 3 times as much to get here.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Whatever it takes for the purification process. And as long as you're turning to God and keep going to your compass, Science and Health in the Bible, you're making progress. Trust it. The old devil, in belief, because there's really no such thing, but that insipid voice wants you to give up or think you're not making progress. So you say,
recognize.
You say. Go ahead. We can't hear you if you're speaking.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, I recognize false traits like impatience. I see the working of animal magnetism, and I'm very grateful for Mrs. Eddy's chapter on animal magnetism.
Yes.
It imposes itself on you. You have to get free of it. You have to recognize it for what it is.
Yes. We have so many wonderful things to study, and certainly our textbook in the Bible. And I've been in precepts this week, too, and all that Carpenter says, so invaluable. I went online, I was looking up some other, maybe some New Age stuff and some other things, and just because I don't know a lot about them. But honestly, I told Gary afterwards I felt like I needed a shower. There's something, it just does not have the purity of the science. And that's why we stick to it. We stick to it. We do not adulterate it with the New Age beliefs, which sometimes sound similar.
Well, very similar. It's incredible. But the promise is that you're going to get instant understanding is going to be great. So that's a red flag. Anything that makes that promise.
Yes.
Nirvana, yeah.
Nirvana. People who are looking for this Zen zone, peace and love. Well, that comes, but it's a very active sense of peace and love.
And it's not human will. New Age has too much human will in it.
Yeah, and the gospel of prosperity, which is what a lot of these things are being called now, very dangerous. And what did Mrs. Eddy say? What was the question that was posed to her? What would happen when she wasn't here? Or what would happen, well, something similar. Maybe when she's no longer here.
And what would happen to the cause when she left?
Right.
She said it would fall into
Material
prosperity.
Deteriorate
Deteriorate.
into material prosperity.
And you see,
Look around.
that's it.
That's what happened.
What happened.
And she tried to warn them.
And this
But
is
even
why-
sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, because even in churches, the prosperity talked about is material prosperity. How much, and the
Right. And
so-called examples with these cars and the planes and whatever to show this is prosperity, okay?
But does it heal the sick
Exactly.
and raise the dead?
Does it
Yes.
cleanse the sinner? It doesn't.
No, and we love to go back to, Florence talking about what Mrs. Eddy's bedroom looked like, and she didn't like Chestnut Hill. It was too big for her, too grandiose. She grew up on a farm. She values the simplicity.
But this is someone, too, that is satisfied. Truly satisfied.
And that didn't mean that she didn't have nice and lovely things. She did. But that wasn't the end-all, be-all. It's not what did satisfy her. It was just a byproduct of the living it, as is everything else. But that doesn't mean if you seem to not have a lot, that doesn't mean you're not living it either. You have to be very careful here about judging righteous judgment. It has actually nothing to do with it. So in Science and Health,
spiritual sense is a conscious, constant capacity to understand God. It shows the superiority of faith by works over faith in words. Its ideas are expressed only in new tongues, and these are interpreted by the translation of the spiritual original into the language which human thought can comprehend.
spiritual sense is a conscious, constant capacity to understand God. What does conscious mean? You're aware of it.
Awareness.
Thank you. Possessing the faculty or power of knowing one's own thoughts or mental operation. Conscious. Are you conscious? I used to think, I don't know what I'm thinking. I just really thoughts just come pouring on me, and I can't control. I don't even know what I'm thinking. And Mrs. Evans would say, BS. only she didn't say BS. So, if you don't know what you're thinking, get in touch with yourself, please. Okay, conscious, constant.
Never ending.
Thank you. Thank you. Never ending it. You're not going to do it tomorrow and then forget it today. Capacity.
Ability.
Yes. To understand God. These are important words because this is what enables us to have this spiritual sense. Conscious, constant, capacity. Being aware, never ending, and knowing you are able to. The last citation in the lesson says, rise in the strength of spirit to resist all that is unlike good. God has made man capable. God has made you capable of this, and nothing can vitiate the ability and power divinely bestowed on you. And what does vitiate mean?
Weaken, diminish.
Yes.
To render something useless.
Yes. Destroy. Spoil its use and value. Render something useless. That's a good one. So nothing can render useless your ability and power to resist all that is unlike good and to rise in that strength of spirit. Okay, now.
Which is why Mrs. A's rule in our household is that excuses were intolerable.
That's right, they were. So that's right. And you see, this is why you're weak. When I was, I just don't know what my thoughts are, and I don't know, and I can't do this. It's too hard. Well, then you read this in Science and Health and say, yes. Resist this argument. And best to do it early on than when, you're so sunk in it all that it seems all the more real. Catch it early. So, Jeremy, you read what you wrote, or tell us what you wrote, and start out with that quote in number 6 in Science and Health, citation 6.
Spiritual sense, contradicting the material senses, involves intuition, hope, faith, understanding, fruition, reality. And when I saw that list, I thought, well, whenever she gives us a list, that's something important to look into. So initially I had put all the definitions with it too, but I realized it was way too long. But yeah, just the way that material sense says at every stage that these things are worthless or you can't have it, and then coming here and learning that we can have it, that is our right to have it. So, what a grateful difference that is.
Thank you, yes. And, it goes through each word. And it's important to think about these words, what they mean to you. And usually when she lists words like this, they build, right? They start out and they get stronger and stronger. And first you get the intuition, the thought, intuition, then you get hopeful.
The material sensing says to ignore your intuition, right?
Mm-hmm.
If it's not material, it's not worth anything.
Yeah, you were talking about little kids having it, and I was thinking about it goes from, to 10 denials to one affirmation, and then you barely hear that little voice.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So intuition, then you become more and more hopeful about the situation. Then that hope turns into faith. The faith becomes understanding. See, it deepens. And then the understanding becomes fruition, which you should have. You should expect results. Not that we are not expecting results. Our expectation is from the Lord. And then reality, what's really real. And then it all makes sense. And, oh, wow. But if you think you can get this by just sitting in your chair and contemplating your navel and all your problems and everything, it's not happening. Or as we talked about yesterday at the Bible study, where you just read. You've got to be living it.
Yeah, the fruits come pretty late in the list.
Yes. And then sometimes people, another thing that I certainly was very good at is, well, how do you know it's the voice of God? Maybe some other voice. I don't know. Oh, Carol, this is Carpenter.
Listening to God.
If you ever expect to hear the voice of God, you must accept the fact that his voice is right now sending out its messages continually, and doing this because you possess a capacity to hear it. Man does receive and hear the voice of God when he seeks it and makes the effort to gain it. But he is not conscious of having done so until a need arises. When he voices that which he himself never knew, then he knows that it is God talking through him. So when you seek to hear God's voice and do not seem to do it, do not be disappointed. Every day, make the effort to open your thought and let God talk to you. And if you do not hear it with your material ears, or are even conscious of it with your conscious thought, take it on good faith. Believe that it is being recorded on the tablet of your mind, and that you are laying up treasure in heaven, in your spiritual consciousness. And when the right time comes, you will be able to give it out and know what God has been saying to you by what you say to another.
Isn't that wonderful?
Beautiful.
That's on our website. I believe it was from Precept, but it's certainly Carpenter. So you start out not with all the negative, I can't hear him, I don't know. You start out with, well, he is here, he's speaking to me now, I can hear him. You declare for it. And you will be able to. Because that is a right idea. Why would not God want you to hear him? Do you think he created you and then said, oh, I don't want him to know anything? That makes no sense. And not only that, it's not, as we've learned, as Fairley was saying about the article oneness, you're one with that mind. It's not even reaching out and appealing, really. It's the oneness, the total connection with him. You will just know. But you do it by doing it. And then sometimes, if you make a mistake, what were we told? Well, you learn from that mistake, right? You will learn. And you will do better next time.
If your motive is pure, the mistake will not do any harm. You will learn.
Yep. So, very important, our spiritual sense. And mainly, I want you to go away with this greater understanding on how it works. So you can do it more accurately, and I'm sure that you all do, right? You all are doing this. I know you are. Okay, well, we're getting the end time, and I want to read again. This is from Precepts. I'll have Gary read this. Again, hearing God's voice, discerning it from a counterfeit, because sometimes it is true. It seems maybe you might question, well, is this really God or not? So anyway, this is Carpenter, starting there.
Okay. Gilbert Carpenter, Precepts. A sick man's thought has stalled. It is necessary to start it in right activity. When a practitioner can feel his patient's thought take hold so that the natural activity of the real man animates the human sense, he knows he has healed him. Christian scientists need not feel as though activity of thought is something that will always have to be forced, or that at any time it may stop. When one functions rightly, activity of thought is far more natural and unlabored than inactivity of thought.
That's the divine mind.
The students did not understand animal magnetism then any more than they do now. They did not realize what it was that sought the life of the young child. In fact, they could not always tell that the young child was dead, or when the spiritual thought left them and they picked up the threads of human thought again. Who does know when this happens? Do we not require some sharp reminder physical exhibition or manifestation of that loss before we realize that we have lost it. Why is this? Because the spiritual thought and the harmonious human thought appear so similar to mortal sense. It is like a sparkling, beautifully cut gem my wife found. She took it to 3 jewelers, and one of them declared it to be a valuable diamond, while the remaining 2 said it was glass. As we become more and more acquainted with both the human and the real, as spiritual sense is brought into activity, the distinction between them will surely become more apparent. It is only to the immature thought that the purified human mind and divine mind seem so alike that one cannot be distinguished from the other. One thing is sure. If desire is prayer, the more we desire to know whether it is the human or the divine mind that is governing us, the surer will be our spiritual discernment. It is when we are indifferent that we remain in doubt. When we earnestly desire to know, God will always tell us, and the manifestation of the purified human mind, which is the loss of the Christ, will become more apparent. The more we approach the understanding of spirit and acquaint ourselves with spiritual sense, the less chance there is for us to be deceived, and the more objectionable and obvious becomes the purified human mind when it attempts to assume the prerogatives of the divine mind. In the Christian Science Journal for November 1884, we find the following, quote, "How can I distinguish between the mortal and the immortal thought? The thought that rests firmly on the understanding that all is good is the immortal thought. When belief in the presence and power of evil or the reality of sin and sickness enters your mind, it is mortal thought." End quote.
So, okay, well, you have all day, every day to practice. Are you hearing God's voice? Are you one with that mind?
And are you obeying it?
And are you obeying it? And if you desire it, then you will find it. Seek and you shall find. Thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.